All right. Hi, everybody. This is Dave from Candid Wholesale. I'm here with Jaime O'Connor, and we are going to be talking today about how to pivot smart and fast. There's a lot going on, obviously, in the world with business slowing down kind of across the board. There are a lot of right ways and a lot of wrong ways to keep your head above water, figure out what you're doing and how to change what you're doing so you can be doing it better. So I'm here with Jaime. I will let you introduce yourself and take it away.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks so much, Dave. So, hi, everyone. I'm Jaime O'Connor, and I am the founder, strategy nerd, and mad scientist, as I like to refer to myself, at Inspired Focus Digital. And I work with a variety of businesses, but a lot of product-based businesses that do both wholesale and e-commerce. And I'm excited to share with you guys today some of the really successful ways some of the businesses I work with have pivoted their businesses, and how to create some content that will help you stay in front of your audiences while your physical locations may be shut down or your wholesale sales are a little slow. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. So yeah, my first question for you is that we've at Candid, we've got a lot of brands and a lot of retailers in the system, and we're sort of, we've got a top-down view on both sides of the ecosystem. And the general sense is that things are really disrupted right now and things are really slow. And even if they were to miraculously get better next week, just given the lead chains on supply times and what the wholesale world looks like, it's just going to be disrupted for a long time. And things that are slow are going to be slow for a long time. Is that your sense too? I feel like we've got a pretty good sample set, but I also know that we kind of surround ourselves with the things we want to surround ourselves with.
Yeah, totally. Well, I would say you guys actually probably have a really strong sample set. But I do take that opinion. I also personally am of the opinion that we were headed for a recession anyways. And so this is probably just moving us even quicker in that direction. And so it's really important right now for everyone to be thinking about what that means should that happen, and be preparing for it and doing the things that they can and need to do to prep themselves for that kind of situation once the rest of the world is up and running. And the reality is I think it's not just that all of those things are going to be slow to get back to normal, but also that the world is just going to be different. We're going to be, people are going to react differently. Consumers will have changed their behavior. We're going to work differently. And so how do we look at this opportunity? I would say actually not to pivot your entire business, because I think that's a mistake, but how do you see other opportunities and channels for sales that maybe you can capitalize on right now that can be just an addition to what you were doing before?
Totally. So you work with a number of clients. What are some things you've seen people do just purely anecdotally? Because I think I like to sort of throw dots on the graph and then see if there's a line we can fit to them. Like what are some of the success stories you've seen of people who can pivot with, as you say, without completely pivoting away from what it is that they do and who it is that they are?
Yeah, totally. It's actually been, this is so strange to say, but I've really enjoyed seeing how some of my clients, but also colleagues that I have just in the industry, manufacturing product and also physical, just brick and mortar locations, what they've done to, I guess, not crawl in a corner and hide in this very scary time, but take advantage and open up new opportunities for themselves to keep their business running right now. So from my client side, I think I have two really great examples that we have talked about recently. And it makes me very proud to be a part of the team to help them do these things and move forward. So one is a skincare brand that they have a physical product, but they also have multiple brick and mortar locations in New York City, which we all know is like this war zone basically when it comes to coronavirus, and has been significantly shut down. I think we're all experiencing that, but it's like another level there. And, you know, she had to, within a matter of days, prior to the full shutdown happening, the reality was that she made the decision to shut down her physical spa locations because her staff felt unsafe. You know, they're doing like facials, and they felt like they were in a position that was putting them at risk. And she wanted to honor what was happening with her staff. So prior to everything truly being shut down, they made the decision to shut down their spas. And then that, not long later, a few days later, they actually did implement the full city shutdown. And it was about 5 days later that she had to furlough 40 of her employees. And
wow,
that next week was probably, as someone who has worked with her for a long time, it was hard for me to even like see her go through it, because it's one of those extremely painful situations where you're seeing a business that you've built for 10 years potentially disappear. Yeah. And that, I think, is a really scary prospect for anybody. I mean, everyone here to some extent is an entrepreneur. We do it because we're passionate. Of course we do it because we want to make money too. There's that piece of it, but we didn't go into it solely. At least most of the entrepreneurs I know, like 90%, have a balance of passion and wanting to be successful financially. And a lot of times it takes us a very long time to get successful financially. So it's painful to see your business like disappear overnight, or what it feels like, especially when you're letting go employees and all of that. So yeah, it took probably a week to 10 days, but then the great thing is she already did have an e-commerce store. That is actually what I was working with her on prior. So we were able to kind of go full force into really pushing the skincare line direct to consumer, capitalizing on the consumer she had. And that's a piece I definitely want to touch on. If you have access to the data of your customers that walk into your store, that's a really, really valuable piece of data to have. And so we were able to take advantage of that, as well as the advertising we've been doing leading up to that time. But that didn't leave aside that she still had some employees that she wanted to keep on board. She wanted to keep busy, but that were specific to the spa. So she started offering consultations that were virtual with estheticians. And I think this is so interesting. One, it took probably 2 weeks to 3 weeks to even start to see it working. So she didn't throw the baby out with the bathwater when it wasn't like taking off right away. And I think that's really important, because we have a tendency, especially in this like fearful time, to like try something, and if it's not working, to just like walk away and try something else. Yeah. And as you and I have talked about a lot, like consistency is key. And so being able to focus on that is really important. And knowing that it can turn around. Well, now today she's getting 15-minute appointments a day, and her estheticians are selling products on those calls. So
it's amazing.
It's this incredible opportunity, right? Where they're getting these one-on-one feelings. People feel like they need connection. Right now, especially like 3-4 weeks in, they're feeling like they need self-care. So it's this opportunity to speak to something they need that they can offer because they have the talent, and then sell products, which is driving more revenue. So I think anyone could do this. Like a retail store from downtown Portland could do, stylist sessions. Right now, there's this big kind of pop movement happening that people are dressing up at home because they want to make themselves feel better. What an incredible opportunity to take advantage and say like, hey, you don't actually get to work with a stylist. Like most of us can't afford to work with a stylist. You can have a 15-minute stylist conversation with someone who really knows how to like nail your style. And then we'll give you a list of the 15 items that you could buy, and 10% off coupon to buy them on our store for a retailer from downtown Portland, let's just say. And then you can expand that reach out far beyond somebody who just might be walking in your store. And that's kind of going back to the idea of adding a channel that you could continue after this all ends.
Mm-hmm.
And having, because yeah, you're going to have to set up that system, but once you have it, then you have it. And it's not pivoting your business. It's taking the resources you have in your business for the situation that's right now, adding another channel, and then something you might be able to use in the future because you have the system set up. So
yeah, no, that's a really great point.
Yeah, that's been a really like inspiring one for me because one, her e-commerce store is just killing it. And I will say across all of my clients, that's the case. So people are shopping and they're getting their stimulus checks right now. So they're probably going to keep shopping. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So with these consultations, are they free? How are they managing? How are they keeping from getting swallowed by that? Or at this point, does it just not matter?
Yeah. So, I mean, what's interesting is that they started them not free. And then they did pivot to doing them free. And the free is kind of where it did start to take a turn, and they started to really see people take off. Now, they started it as well with their existing customer list. So these were like paying customers who came into the spa, and then kind of started to expand out from there. So you already know, and I think if you have an existing business and you have a physical location where you've been collecting any kind of customer data, you have those people you can reach out to first and create like a base foundation. So the thing is that the estheticians have been able to sell enough product, and like probably more than an e-commerce store, because they're physically talking to someone and talking about why you want these certain products at this particular time, that it's completely made up for it being free. So to a lot of extent, I think, especially because they started with their base customer and it's expanded from there, but it has definitely paid itself back very, very well. And now what's interesting is this week they're adding like virtual spa happy hours that they're doing giveaways during, and so it's gated. So you have to give your email address to sign up for it. And so they're adding additional ways that they're connecting with people and teaching people how to take care of themselves at home. So I think if you look at, let's just say fashion, there actually are already models that exist, because there have been, like, I hate to refer, because it's a totally different thing, but the reality is they've been successful. There are network marketing companies that have taken advantage of the digital space for a long time, creating like virtual happy hours together to talk about these new products that you have. Well, retailers can do that.
Totally. No, and it's funny because it seems new, but I remember, I think it was like the late 90s, and the Galeries Printemps in Paris, they had like roller skating personal shoppers, and it was 20 years ago they were doing this.
Totally. So and I think the longer that we're in these situations, the more people are sick of Zoom calls with their friends and family and are probably looking for other kinds of connection.
Absolutely. So, no, that's a really good point. And I'm curious too, this might be too in the weeds or not something you guys have talked about, but how, a lot of what I think people are missing is not so much the one-on-one as it is the sense of a community, and the sense of, a lot of what we do at Candid, we're talking about one of our big selling points for people who are maybe neglecting their wholesale program because they're doing just fine with direct to consumer, is that it's so lonely. It's a tree falling in a forest. Does it actually make a sound? And I think, I'm curious if they've told you anything about how like the social proof works, or how there's a sense that when you've booked your call that you're not the first one doing this pilot program, or that it's not just someone in their laundry room with a pair of cheap headphones, trying to make a buck.
Totally. No, I think that's absolutely a huge part of it. And I have a video series where I talk to other entrepreneurs. And the one we had last week, community was such a huge part of that conversation. And I think it's absolutely true. And the more that we aren't having in-person human connection, the more we need it online. And beyond just one-on-one, and kind of that feeling of being in it together and kind of in joint different ways. And, you know, speaking to the community of the things that particularly interest you. So if you own a business and you service a certain type of customer, if you can create that kind of community online where your customers are like-minded, and to some extent you can bring them together for a virtual happy hour or another way, then you're offering something beyond just selling your product, and you're creating something deeper that I think connects them more to you beyond just which is what you were doing in store. I mean, that's one of the advantages that brick and mortar has over e-commerce, is that you can create that kind of experience together. You know, I would say product manufacturers are a little bit different, because a lot of times they had, you know, if you're selling wholesale and a little bit direct to consumer, you might not have gotten to a point where you have a physical location. But there's still that same opportunity, because, for example, you know, I was with Silipint for several years, and we had a tribe. Like, we didn't have a physical location, but people loved the product. And there was like different factions of tribes, right? There's people who were like van lifers, that it was like the perfect product for van lifers. And so there are ways that you can speak to those communities. If you know, it kind of goes like back to a conversation I have with clients in any environment, not just this one, but who is your real customer avatar? Who are you really talking to? And we have a tendency, Silipint's a great example, where it's a cup, right? Like, anyone can use a cup. And I remember my very first day working there, and that was what I got told. Well, everyone can use a cup. And I'm like, yeah, everyone can use a cup, but who needs this cup? And who do we need to be talking to? And this is that time that it's okay to alienate some people. Like, of course, you could have a reason for anyone to buy your product, but who are the people who really, truly buy your product? Talk to them and speak directly to them on a regular basis, and bring them into your community and into your hub, and do that right now. Because if you do that right now, you stay top of mind for whenever the world opens back up.
Yeah, no, that's a really good way of thinking about it, because it's, you know, I think when I think about pivoting, and I think of, you know, the friends that I have who've, you know, the two big examples, in at least for manufacturing here in Portland, are if you do anything textiles, you can make masks. If you do anything, you know, if you're a distillery, you know, or I beauty supply, like, you can make hand sanitizer, and those are the two things. But that it's not so much about, you know, if you're turning 15 degrees to the left or turning 15 degrees to the right. It's maintaining the consistent focus on what's your message, who are you trying to deliver it to, and, you know, suddenly you open your toolbox and it's just a completely different set of tools, because we're in crisis mode. And you keep doing the thing you were doing, but just coming at it from a different angle.
Yeah, and I think that's where I think talking about the idea of almost less pivoting, but like, what is the channel you can create with the resources you have and the customers that already love you, and expanding out that target audience a bit more. So the customers that already love you, I don't know why I keep going back to this example, but if you're a brick and mortar store in downtown Portland, those people exist in some form across the country. And you can keep talking, like, think of your top 5 people that shop with you, and whenever you're doing any kind of piece of marketing online, talking into a camera or whatever else, we can talk about how to do that a little bit. But the best thing to do is imagine you're talking to those 5 people, or one of those 5 people. And then you can find those other people in other places. So you're creating a channel based on the resources you already have, the customers you already have. It is a pivot because it's different than your current model, but it's one that could potentially just be an addition. That same skincare line they created a hand sanitizer, right? But it wasn't just that they were pivoting. The hand sanitizer is made of organic ingredients and they're an organic skincare line. So they're still speaking to the same customers that they already were. And it like blew up. And the thing that happened was that people didn't just buy the hand sanitizer for $5 for like a little tiny thing. They bought the hand sanitizer and then they're like, well, I'm already on here shopping, so I'm going to buy another thing of face wash and another thing of body oil. And then it just kind of snowballs. So
yeah, it gets you into the store.
Yeah.
No, that's really smart. And it's true. I really like this paradigm also of you're not pivoting, you're expanding, because there's always, if you're a business, there's always more for you to do than you have hours in the day and resources to accomplish. So figuring out what comes next is not sitting down at a clean slate and saying, what am I going to do today? It's looking at the 10,000 possible futures you could have and eliminating them. And I think that what it does, for us at Candid, Candid is an app that helps buy and sell wholesale. Like, it is a wholesale transaction and order management and relationship management platform. When orders slow down, all of a sudden we've got this list of features that we're going to work on, and suddenly what we're calling the single player features bubble up to the surface, where all of a sudden the things that you can do not to be selling today but rather to prepare for the sales coming up jump a lot higher in the queue than they did 8 weeks ago.
Sure. And they're going to be useful after it ends. It might not be after it ends, it might switch, but you've just added to your business as a whole rather than completely changing focus entirely.
And you're just dancing around the roadmap a little bit, but it's all it's going in the same direction.
So that actually leads to another client example that I think is a totally different example and a totally different pivot, but I think equally as, like, they essentially did something similar in adding a whole new idea to the way that their business ran. And what is interesting, it was actually on the roadmap, but it was like very far down the line. So another brand I work with, really incredible B Corp, and they make their products in India because they work with they work with women who are at risk of the sex trade and provide jobs and job training. It's a really amazing program. Well, there's a huge embargo issue happening in India, and they're not able to completely get all their items shipped the way they normally do, and it's created this havoc. Well, within a number of days of figuring out that that products were not shipping as they had been, they gathered their resources and their network. They found several other brands that also did mainly wholesale, because they had been direct to consumer. So they have this market. They have this really strong market, but they can't ship their products. So they gathered together a bunch of other brands that they have known over the years through their network and said, look, we have this audience. We have these people who support us. We have people who sell, and we need to be able to continue to sell products to them in one way or another. We want to create a collective. And so they gathered brands that would appeal to their audience, that didn't have a strong e-commerce presence, and gave them the opportunity to be on their store as like a marketplace almost. And they're now essentially like a wholesale, but they're doing it more drop shipping. They're working together on them in different ways, and reached out to their community. They were very transparent and honest about what was going on. They gave the customers who had purchased and who were planning on purchasing the option of either a refund. I'm good to wait until it ships because I know it's going to ship at some point, but I just won't have it right now, or to choose one of the other products. And I think like 80% said they'd wait. They ended up getting a whole bunch of orders from people who had ordered the previous products, said they would wait, and now they're buying the collective products. And now they have a whole nother section of their site where they can talk about these other products and promote them in a way that is mutually beneficial. Their margins are a little bit lower, of course, because now they've turned into a little bit more of a marketplace, but the other brands are benefiting, they're promoting it. It's becoming this kind of holistic environment where they've created an opportunity for everyone to grow together. And now they've made enough money to like get a full shipment on a ship over here so they can actually fulfill all their orders.
Wow.
So it's created this like really amazing situation where they've added another channel and partnerships and can support other local businesses while still moving their business forward. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really cool. No, and I really, I love how these aren't, I hate myself for putting the word pivot in the title because these aren't pivots. They're just,
but you know what? It's okay because I think that's what everyone talks about. And we hear it so much. And in the startup world, we've heard it so much. And I think that it's almost good, right? That we're talking about it in a way that there are slight pivots in it, but it's not pivoting your whole business.
Totally.
So.
Yeah, no, great way of putting that. So earlier you said that it's really important that you have your data on existing customers and use that. What can you go into that a little deeper?
Yeah, so not all retail locations have this. Wholesale customers do have this. So I think there's two different pieces of or like product manufacturers will likely have this. I believe if you sell on like Etsy, you probably have it. But so essentially, if you've built a list of people over however long, if you have a brick and mortar store, offered opportunities to get their information over time, you should be talking to those people and you should be highly transparent about it. Like, my physical location is closed and we want to be here to serve you when this all ends. Please support us on our store. Like, you, no holds bar, ask that. Because people are shopping and they're shopping on Amazon and Target. They might as well be supporting you locally. And there is no reason not to be asking for it. So I think people tend to be a little bit afraid of doing that. And I think it's one of the biggest mistakes that you can make, quite frankly, is not taking advantage of your loyal customers. I would say similarly, if you sell wholesale, a lot of the people on your list are also, they're human beings. they're real life human beings who buy products. So again, don't be afraid to talk to them about it and say, your business may not be able to buy from us right now and sell in your physical locations or wherever you're selling, but you as a human being can, and support us so we can be here so you can purchase from us at the other end. So there's so many pieces to that I think can work really well. And actually, this is another interesting one that Sudara, the brand I was just talking about, did, was they actually went to their wholesaler, the retailers that bought their products, because they're doing so well online themselves, and they're purchasing them back as they sell. And so it creates this win-win too for retailers who might be sitting on all this product they can't sell right now, and allows them to continue to sell. They're making their money back. It's sunk costs for the retailer. They probably already paid for it. So now they're making their cash flow right now to be able to get through this time. So like being creative with those kinds of things, that could be another opportunity if you sell products into retail locations and you have an e-commerce store. And if you don't have an e-commerce store, get it up right now and start doing some advertising because it's cheap and it's selling really, really well. So that's like, get online as quick as possible. But so there's a lot of opportunity kind of in that exists.
No, that's a really good point. And again, a quick plug for Candid. One of the things that we do that was, like bullet point 18, that's now like bullet point 3 in this particular moment, is we help, wholesale brands can integrate their wholesale and their direct to consumer channels, specifically with inventory. You can sync your inventory so that, if someone buys a shirt on your website, suddenly it's not available for wholesale, which seems simple, but it's when it's working, you don't think about it, but when it's not,
Oh
you've got
yeah,
canceled orders, you've got very angry customers. It's just
totally.
bad vibes all around.
Yeah, absolutely. That's totally true. Yeah.
So those are some great examples of two like very different but very relevant sectors doing some very
Yeah.
specific types of pivot expansions. What do you have any general notes? I mean, I know you live and breathe digital strategy, and I know we've in our work together we spend hours every month on the phone staring at our screens.
Yeah.
What have you found? I mean, do you have any general advice for people? I know that's an insanely broad question, but general advice for any small to medium-sized business that's looking to stay afloat when the doors are closed or the customers are clinging to their wallets or whatever.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I would say at the core, the number one piece of advice is get out there. Just be out there in some capacity. I think there can be this hesitation, especially as you see a lot more people getting out there, to be like, oh, well, they're already out there, I'm not going to do it. And the reality is that the world is abundant and there's so many people to talk to that the biggest mistake is just not doing it. And there's definitely strategies that you can get into to actually pursue like the digital side of things. So I think there's a few pieces here. So one is, like I said, just getting out there. I have recently come across this really great resource that was called the 3x3 strategy. And it's by Dennis Yu. You can look him up, YU. He's a pretty prolific digital marketer, but he talks about, especially for, well, anybody, but creating videos. So creating 3 videos about your why. So why did you build your business? Why are you doing what you're doing now? Why should people be supporting you? Just like that overall kind of deeper core of your business. The what. So 3 videos about the what. That is talking about what you sell, what you do, what you offer to people. And I think right now it is important to be thinking about what that means for people right now. So if you are a physical location fashion store, like what you do as far as the type of style, what to look for. So for instance, if you particularly sell sustainable products where you make sure that everyone you sell in your store has ethical supply chain, then that is a really good what to talk about and educate people about. And then how is like the physical, how can somebody actually then do something with you and purchase from you or take action in some capacity. So if you make three of each of those, you suddenly have 9 pieces of content you can put out there in whatever locations, whether that's Instagram or Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. There's so many places, and put them all out in all of those places. And you can get in front of people. So just being out there alone, I think, is the core foundational piece that we all should be doing right now. Because the reality is that people are doing that. And if you're not doing it, your loyal customers are going to go somewhere else, and they're going to find someone else that connected with them during this time. So how can you offer value and be there for people in a way that connects with them right now? Then I would say, if you do have the ability to sell online and you're not doing it already, Shopify is extremely easy to set up, and it's very much well worth it, because things are selling. They are selling across the board. I have clients from like B Corps like Sudara to Savor Beauty, that skincare, to hunting brands, to trying to think of but essentially across the board. And everybody is selling well if they have an e-commerce store, because your customer is online. Attention has never been higher. So the reality is, if you're making that content and you're putting it out there, and you have somewhere to send them, things will probably sell. I have a really good example of someone locally in my hometown where she had a really, really cute, like artsy little store. And of course, shut down. And she did two things. She hasn't done a single ad, but she just kind of reached out to her local community and said, you know, we need support, and I'm going to have a honor system where you can come get paint supplies, and I'm going to do some online group sessions where we're going to paint together, and you can go by the store. Everything's sitting outside. There's a box to put money in. And that's how it got started. People generally did the honor system. I think this works better if you're in a small town like I am. But, you know, she started with that. People kept supporting her, talking about it online, sharing it just in the community. And then she made some sweatshirts and sold them directly through Facebook, through like Messenger. And then I think she just got her e-commerce store up like 3 or 4 days ago. She sold out of her sweatshirts in like 3 hours because she'd just been serving her community and telling people she needed help. So, I mean, at the core, that is like, just get out there, just talk to people, just like say what you need and find a way to sell those things to them that will continue to keep you running.
Yeah, no, and I really like your point too about, you know, and I've noticed this in the marketing that I've responded to really well. When someone paints a picture of a future where this is all behind us and they're still here versus one where they're not, that can be a really compelling story, and it almost empowers you as the target of that marketing, because suddenly you feel like this all powerful gardener with your little watering can, and you know, choosing which plants live and which plants die.
Totally.
And it's true. I think that's a really sort of optimistic and not a hostage taking or bad feeling way to present the
I want to be here to serve you no matter what. So like, let's do this together. I mean, I think that there's a really powerful message in that. And so, I mean, I would say if you're in a position where you haven't had all those things set up, that's a really good example of like how you can do it. If you have an e-commerce store, and you already have sales and you already have had customers and those things are already set up, then you should be advertising. Like right now is so pivotal. Ad costs, I mean, I get sick of hearing this from other digital marketers, but the reality is true that it is very real that ad costs are very low right now. They are as low as they were, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. It's insane. People are online. They are definitely online, and there are still a lot of people who have their income. So there is very real opportunity. And I think a really important piece of that is I highly recommend, like I said, I talked about the 3x3 strategy, but posting, creating content, doing videos, doing those things and putting yourself out there. You can use that stuff if you kind of follow that why, what, how strategy. You can use those things as ads alongside of your physical product ads. And then you're creating that community and that support in a way that is beyond just buy my stuff. And that's creating, I would say, like evangelism or trust and tribe for the long term. And that's what we have been doing for all of our clients is that that's kind of the strategy we use, the strategy we talk about a lot when we're on calls together. And I think it exponentially helps you now and in the future to do it that way. So I definitely highly recommend, if you're in a position where you're already set up and you're already selling and you already have some customers, that looking into how you can push that further and advertise is, it's a really good investment right now, and it's going to help you right now, but it's also going to help you when we come out of all of this.
Absolutely. What are another kind of one size fits all question, but what are some channels that you like right now versus, you know, that maybe weren't as popular or as effective in terms of like, is it videos? Is it direct email? Is it, know, where
for
should
sure
people be focusing their efforts?
I think I have been a fan of video since before all of this, but I think it's even more prevalent now because of human connection. So, video on Facebook, video on Instagram, you know, that's not really new. People have been talking about it for a while now, but the opportunities are really great because attention's at such an all-time high. I also have been a fan of and a believer in email marketing forever. I don't think it's dying. I think it's very, very much successful right now. All my clients are seeing success with it. And I think it's foundational because you own that list. So again, going back to kind of what we talked about from the beginning, if you don't already have it, make sure it's something that you're working on now. Creating that owned opportunity right now. So, is one of the pieces you can be focused on is continuing to build, I guess, as I've mentioned in other conversations, we've had the stocked pond that you can then fish in afterwards. So I would say driving to email. Video I love right now on Facebook and Instagram because you can create video view audiences. So if you're really speaking to things that speak to and connect with your target audience, you're creating these pools of people that you essentially can fish in the future and right now. So both of those mediums to me are really strong. This is not my main area of expertise, but it's an area that I am venturing into a little bit more right now. But I think there's tons of opportunity on YouTube. There's still industries that don't actually have a ton of great content on YouTube. And I think depending on what kind of industry you're in, that may be an area to look at to be putting content up and sharing in other places. And then I would say if you are in kind of that wholesale space, being present on LinkedIn because the organic reach is really, really strong. So I know this is like hitting everything. So of course,
no, that's great. That's what I asked.
Or LinkedIn organic is still like by far has the most reach of any of the platforms. So if that is where your audience is, and more than likely that means that you're kind of building your pond right now for the future, but being there and being present and talking about how you're getting through this time or what you can offer in kind of those capacities that I was talking about before. Or for example, if you're doing a little bit of a pivot to direct to consumer, but you still want to make sure you're nurturing your other audience, going onto LinkedIn and doing videos and talking about what you're doing there to make sure you stay alive can actually be really valuable content to make sure that you're still in front of wholesalers in the future. So I think you kind of have to think about where your audience is, which is, I know what everyone says, but yeah. So I would say video and email are really strong. Attention's at an all-time high on Facebook and Instagram. And there's opportunities across the board organically on all of the platforms. But if you're B2B, you should be on LinkedIn for sure.
That's extremely helpful advice. Okay, well that kind of does it for my list of questions. Is there anything we didn't talk about that
we talked about so much?
The conversation pivoted.
Yeah, that's funny. No, I think that's awesome. I would say I actually don't have this page up, but I can get it up right away. I actually have like a kind of guide for creating content that you guys can all go check out. So I'll put it up at inspiredfocusdigital.com/candid, and it'll be on there, and it just kind of guides you through like 10 questions that you can touch on to create content. And maybe that can help some people as they're trying to get their presence out there.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful.
Yeah, for sure. So hopefully that's helpful. And I'm in the community with everyone. So I'm super happy to answer any questions about digital and being online in e-commerce. I've owned my own store and I've helped build up e-com in-house for people, and now have a lot of clients in that space. So happy to help whoever I can.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Jaime O'Connor from Inspired Focus, thank you so much for helping us today.
Of course. Yes, I
think
love it.
the big takeaways, the notes that I was taking, the big thing is it's, you know, we can use the word pivot, but it's really just going somewhere you were already planning on going sooner. You know, for the most part, that's the smart way to handle, you know, what to do next week during the current crisis if business is not operating as usual right now. And the biggest thing that I think that I want to make sure doesn't get lost in the shuffle too is to give ideas time to work and make sure you're consistent with them before you say that they're not working, because success doesn't necessarily happen overnight, especially when you're trying something new. And there's no universal recipe for that other than, you know, throw some metrics in place, set timelines at the beginning, and kind of make sure you're not moving too quickly to stick.
Yeah, I love that. Actually, just to hit on that point really quick.
Yeah.
Someone I featured on my video series a couple of weeks ago had a really great term that I loved, which was pivot, perish, or parachute. And essentially he pointed out that one of the mistakes we make when we are trying something new is not putting some metrics out of like, if I'm not reaching this point at these times, and realistic, not like totally crazy, unrealistic expectations of suddenly I'm going to put this new channel out there and then it's going to work really well. But like putting those metrics so that you can decide at that time frame, I'm either going to continue down this path with this pivot, I'm going to pull my parachute and slightly change, or I'm going to let it die. Yeah. And I was like, that's a brilliant terminology to think about how to do that. So I think that is an important piece. And Savor's example is really great, right? Because they started with the paid for virtual consults. They slightly pivoted it to free when it wasn't quite working, and they continued down that path, and then it was successful. So, you know, they were able to make the decision not to throw it out, but try it slightly differently, because they set that up for themselves. So
totally. Yeah. So, I mean, the big lesson being you just have to be smart and hardworking and incredibly lucky.
and a little bit nimble, I think, a little bit flexible, and yeah, just go for it. I mean, the worst thing you can do right now is hide in the corner, I think.
Yep. 100%.
So, yeah.
Right on.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. This was really delightful. I'm sure we'll talk again soon. And if anyone has any questions for you that we didn't get to, you know, we're all here. We're all
just pop them in the group. Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Glad to help.
Fantastic.
Good chatting, Dave.
Take care, Jaime.
Bye.
Bye.